certain things are always going to be hard to talk about, no matter how many times you talk about them.
We talked about this before we started, but just like knowing your kids, knowing their tells, knowing when to push and when not to push. And so for Hannah, especially before she could drive, and I would drop her off at counseling and then pick her up, like she'd get in the car afterwards and I would say, is there anything you need me to know? Like, is there anything you need to tell me? Trying to give her that space to tell, but not pressure. And so, and we still do that. Like when I know she's having a hard time, or if I know she has a session, and I will call and check with her afterwards and be like, is there anything we need to know? Or talk, kind of giving her that space to share if she needs to. Mm-hmm. But also, you know, sometimes she'll say, I don't feel like talking about it right now. And even as her mom, like, I want to know right now what is going on. I will pause and give it some time and come back to it later.
I have to go on like a counseling cool down.
She has to have a minute.
Or I have to have like a little bit, because if I've just had like a emotionally charged hour of however long of talking about stuff, then it's important for me to have time to like pause, collect my thoughts, and then communicate to mom and dad. Mm-hmm. And if it's going to be like a difficult conversation that I'm having to have with them, then I need a minute to like emotionally reconfigure before I feel like ready to talk about it.
That's a great point. I think that's a part of the human condition, period, right? Obi asked me some hard questions the other days just about life goals, things like that, and I hadn't put much thought into them because I haven't really wanted to. Mm-hmm. And it takes a lot of intentional effort to go where you go with your counselor, or go with where you go in hard conversations with your husband and your kids. All of us, it takes a lot of effort. And when we go there, you don't want to, it's hard to just go right back there with somebody else. That's a great point. To end this show, I want to go back a little bit and ask you, my brain's been stuck on this. You said that you had big emotions at night as a teenager. Is there some psychological evidence of like if that's natural and teenagers to have big emotions at night? Do you feel like it was just a personal scenario?
I think it's pretty common among teenagers. Something about that like combination of late night, you're more tired, your guard comes down a little bit. There might be some emotions that have been stewing all day that all like are finally processing to a point you can talk about them. I know that at counseling specifically, there's like, oh my gosh, it's like the doorknob, it's called something, but basically it's like people are more likely, or it's like a common phenomenon that people will all of a sudden be ready to talk about something that's bugging them for like weeks at the end of an hour-long session. You've got like 15 minutes left with your counselor, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, I've been dealing with this big issue. And so I think that also is relevant with kids, in that it's like your mom and dad are like asking you all day, hey, is everything okay? Is everything good? And you're like, yeah, I'm fine. But then it's like you've got those 15 minutes before your mom and dad are going to go to bed. Yeah. And it's like all of a sudden you're like, wait, actually, that was something that I would have. I would also just have like big emotions later at night. Like I'd be coming home from ballet, which was just an emotionally fraught environment, and then be in more of like a vulnerable place where I felt more open to share. I think it just depends on the person. But I know a lot of people, like I've seen people talk about it online and like parenting spaces and that kind of stuff of like, oh my gosh, has anyone else noticed that their teenager all of a sudden wants to talk about like everything at like 11 p.m.
Okay, so this reminding me of almost every night. Kids is, time to go to bed.
And then they want to spill it all.
Right. Yeah. And I just, like, for the longest time, I just thought, they just want to stay up. They don't. I think that's part of it. They want to share. They're in that safe space. They've come down from maybe being at school and holding things in for a while.
Yep.
And it's bedtime, and they just come lay beside you in the bed. So pay attention to that as a listener. If your kids are coming in your room at night, know that maybe something that they want to talk to you about, and it may be important. So having Hannah on the show last season and having you on the show, we talked a lot about problems and dealing with problems, but the thing that I don't want to do is frame this as, and we said this off camera, I don't want to frame that there's just something wrong with you, right? I want this to be educational. I want it to open people's eyes. I want people to be able to see the signs of things that are going on in their kid. I also want them to see the great things about their kids and how these aspects of their personality might lead to certain things, but these aspects of their personality is who God made them.